Brant might be one of the most popular characters within Renacita's roster, and for good reason. He's really funny and his animations are also quite incredible, leaving a lot of people to feel very excited. But obviously some people are going to wonder if pulling for Brant truly is the best decision for their account. That's what I'm going to be answering in this question by giving you some of Brant's biggest pros and cons. Now, obviously when discussing Brant, the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that he's an incredible character for dual carry teams. I've already made an entire video on the dual carry playstyle, and why it's as good as it is. But why is Brant in particular good in this playstyle? Well, like I said in that previous video, dual carry benefits from two main things. First of all, long animations, and second of all, having those animations also be part of your biggest damage sources. Look at the biggest example of a dual carry DPS currently, which is Chang-Li. Her skill, heavy attack, and all of her true sight attacks are quite easily swappable, and they are the vast majority of her damage. So it makes sense that Chang-Li is known to be an incredible dual carry character because she is a perfect example of everything that makes dual carry strong. Brant also fits into this because he is capable of holding his aerial normal attacks, which will make them deal more damage. These held versions of the basic attacks also do more damage than just the regular taps, which means that overall, Brant is going to be having pretty long animations that also do a large amount of damage, which is exactly what a dual carry character is looking for. And I think getting an expansion within the dual carry roster is something that I was kind of hoping for, because we don't really get them that often. The second big thing I wanted to talk about in Brant's favor is the fact that he has skill buffing in his kit. And when I say skill buffing, I mean through his Ultra skill, giving 25% damage amplification towards resonant skills. Now, why is this such a big thing? Well, it's because buffing resonant skills is pretty underutilized at the moment, with the only character that is currently able to do it efficiently being Zhezha. Now, I know that Lumi and Taochi both exist, but they're not exactly the best examples of good buffers, if you know what I mean. Their low personal damage, lack of utility, and longer field times than other characters make them not so good, which means most people are left with Zhezha. However, Brant puts this idea on its head, because he is yet another skill damage buffer who has more to offer other than just ugh I buff skill, which means that he's going to be a better character overall, because Brant has very solid personal damage within his teams, especially when you consider the fact that he can buff as well and can also heal. Which means that overall, when you're looking at skill damage buffers, Brant is going to be one of our best options. And considering the fact that Chang-Li, Jinshi, and Carlotta are all very much skill damage based characters, this is a very big bonus. Especially if you have both Carlotta and Jinshi, because you only have one Zhezha. But getting Brant does open up the possibility for your Jinshi to run a team with Yuenwu or Verena and then Brant, and then Carlotta can have the Zhezha, which means that Brant is capable of freeing up teammates. Another thing that Brant has going for him is that he has some excellent mobility within his kit. His playstyle is very unique, because he is dangling off of ropes that go into the sky, and he swings around like a maniac, which obviously means he's going to have some pretty good movement within his kit. Now, why is this important? A lot of bosses like to move away, like for example, the Tempest Mephis or the Inferno Rider. However, Brant says no to this and just chases them down by literally just attacking like he normally would. So Brant is honestly just a champion when it comes to those bosses. And then another big positive for Brant is that he is capable of healing. I'm not gonna dwell too long on this because Brant's healing isn't all that impressive in the grand scheme of things. But his healing is good enough to where if you're able to dodge well, it means that you don't need to bring someone like Shorekeeper or Verena if your sole goal is to just stay alive. This combined with Brant's shield is honestly pretty nice when it comes to your defensive utility. But obviously Brant isn't a perfect character, so he has some downsides, which I'm going to get into now. First of all, Brant is going to be pretty hard to build. His Forte Circuit and Ultimate allow Brant to boost his attack by a very large amount based on his energy regen. Now, why does this matter so much? Well, I can tell you why. This buff is so strong that energy regen rolls become more powerful than attack percent rolls, which is almost unheard of. The only other scenario in which you'd want this is if your character has a high energy requirement, which to be fair Brant does have, but he also needs energy for his own damage. This also synergizes with his best set being the Tidebreak Encourage, giving 30% damage bonus if you have more than 250% energy regen. The problem, however, getting 250 energy regen without his signature weapon is going to be a nightmare. And even then, his Forte caps at 280%, so if you want to cap it out, prepare to roll energy regen on literally every piece with a double main stat. Yeah, it's that much of a nightmare. And getting ER is a very big damage increase on Brant, so it's not like you can just ignore the energy regen roll when you don't get it. And his signature weapon does make this easier, but all that this means is if you don't have his signature weapon, it's gonna be very hard for you to reach the requirements. Another thing that goes against Brant is the fact that he is a Quickswap character. And while I did say this was a very good thing previously, Quickswap has its own downsides that means that Brant is inherently flawed because he plays in this same archetype. And the flaw I'm going to be discussing here is the fact that Quickswap is just generally harder to play than a hypercarry team. Now obviously this is a pretty easy conclusion to make. Quickswap teams are all about swapping constantly, knowing exactly when to swap, and having that timing to swap as efficiently as possible. So if you don't have this, Quickswap teams are going to be harder for you to manage. And maybe they might not even be worth it for some of you if you're not good enough. This problem is shared by the character that Brant is going to be running alongside with, being Changli. Changli has the same issue. She is a dual carry character, and will therefore also need this same amount of reaction time and swapping, making both of their skill floors just way higher than they need to be. And then, as a sort of extension of this, the third point is that Brant is not going to be that good for a hypercarry setup. Now, why do I say this? I thought he had a pretty good buff with his resonant skill. Well, sort of. The way you want to play Brant in these teams is that you are quick swapping with the other character, and then you want to time his Ultra skill in a specific way where their biggest damage cluster will be getting buffed. For example, with Jinchi, you would want this to be her nuke, and then for Carlotta, you would want this to be her ultimate. But why not just play him in the regular context of a hypercarry team? Well, this is because his rotation is just longer than other sub-DPS characters. Look at the other sub-DPS characters in question, for example. Yinlin has about 6 to 7 seconds, Zhezhi has about 5 to 6 if you factor in jump cancels, and Roshi has about 6.5 as well. Brant is going to be longer than all of these, and field time is a very precious resource, especially when your DPS wants about 15 seconds of their own, and then your support will also take up about 5 seconds. And considering that most of these supportive Ultra skills last 30 seconds, this leaves you with about 10 seconds to work with. So the longer your rotation is, the longer you are threading that needle, making your rotations tighter to execute and overall harder to optimize. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think of Brant? Are you going to pull for Brant? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to ask me a question, you can ask me on my Discord where I'm very active. If you just want to hear my random thoughts on ramblings, be sure to follow me on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Both my Discord and my X are linked in the description. But that'll be it from me. Peace.